everybody. My name is Ellie, and I want to welcome you to Storytime with Ellie podcast, the show that takes us on a narrated journey through stories. And today we will be speaking with Julian Valderrama. Julian, who is a talented and proficient published author and is an expert in his study of energy, human potential, and quantum mechanics. Having a current published books, two of them actually, on the subject is helping people around the world to understand what a complex subject, matter by nature, and breaks it down into easy format and layman's terms so we understand very easy, so that the average reader can gain insight, understanding he has a unique gift, and he's a proficient writer as a ghostwriter as well, helping authors regain credibility, bring your stories and books to global audience. He brings his knowledge to the big screen as well. In a current film he just finished, Beyond Limitations. Now let's welcome our special guest, Julian Valderrama.
Thank you for having me.
Hey,
Ellie.
Julian, how are you?
I'm doing outstanding. Thank you.
Yeah, this is so exciting. Tell us about everything. Tell us about you.
Yeah, what would you like to start with? I mean, there's so much, right?
I know you have so many different things you have done. My God, let's start with the Beyond Limitations, the movie that you just.
What'd you think of it?
I actually loved it. It was great.
Yeah.
The characters, the actors, characters that we want to call them.
The cast.
The cast.
Yes.
I'm not into acting, but were great. They were great. Their stories were fabulous. I related to a couple of them, personally, and it was fantastic. But I'm curious, how did you land that spot? How did you get into that? Who recognized you to get you into that movie with Don Bowers?
Don Boyer.
Don Boyer.
Yeah.
I'm bad with names.
No, don't worry about it.
That documentary. How did you get in with that?
That's a good question. So, essentially, my writing.
Mm-hmm.
I found my affinity for writing. There were some things that were happening in my life that essentially I felt lost. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what was truth. I didn't know. I was just confused about life. So through that pain, and through, perseverance, and like the movie says, moving beyond those limitations, right? I magically just happened to find my affinity for writing, and that can be, I can elaborate on that because it was truly a magical experience, because I never really written anything substantial in my life, other than some college papers, and in high school, but nothing of this sort. So through that pain, I was able to go deep within. Now, all my life, one of the things that I've always managed to do is read. I've always loved reading. So whenever I found the opportunity, I will find myself reading books. And from an early age, to kind of give you a little bit perspective, before I was 10, I read the Bible twice,
Wow.
cover to cover.
Wow.
Wow.
So, I think there's not a lot of people that can do that. So because I was able to do that, there were some things in there that I instinctively applied because I learned them at a very early age. And a lot of people call it prayer, right? And many people rely in prayer when something is wrong in their life or when they feel lost. And that's something I did and I know I've done in the past. So when I was in this place, I used that technique. I used prayer. I asked God for help to help me find my purpose, to help me find essentially one of the things that I was good at, something that I could be passionate about, because I essentially lost my purpose in life.
A lot said. You say you lost your purpose in life.
Yep.
So you didn't know what direction you were going into. You just came to a standstill. You were just like, because usually when you lose your purpose, you don't know which direction you're going. And how did you get that back when you lost your purpose? Like by writing?
No,
You said-
that's a good question.
Yeah.
So the transition was because I was feeling all this pain and not knowing where I was going, and I decided to, like I said, I did prayer, and then certain things started to happen in my life where I kept getting this feedback from life, and essentially what it was telling me, or as I was interpreting it, is that I was supposed to sit down and write, and the feedback, it wasn't a thought in my mind. I, I shouldn't say that. It wasn't a thought that I was thinking about because I was actually arguing against the thought. I'm like, what exactly am I going to write about when I'm lost? What do I have to teach? What do I have to, present to other people? But because all my life I read books, I had a world of knowledge and data, even though it wasn't 100% fully integrated. So when I gave into the idea, I'm like, okay, you know what? Fine. I'm going to sit down. And this is because the feedback just kept coming back and forth.
So, again, you can always say, not answering that question or, I'm just going to fire at you.
Yeah.
So, who do you think, if it's getting too deep, gave you that thought to write? Who do you think was the orchestrator to say to Julian to write?
Uh huh.
It had to come from somewhere, correct? I mean, it wasn't just in your head. You were getting kind of signs, I think.
Yes.
Just from what you're.
You know what? You're describing my experience precisely.
Yeah, and I think the best way for you to express this, it was obviously through writing, which a lot of people do.
Yes.
And because obviously because you're writing it down and you're able to focus on what you're writing and you're learning at the same time. But what else kind of like,
So you're right. That's a good question because where was it coming from? That was the question.
Yeah.
It's such an important question because when people think of prayer, they think that, it's just I'm speaking to this force, or I'm speaking to God, or I'm speaking to the universe, or maybe I'm speaking to just life, right? So there's so many different subjective interpretations. Mine obviously was from my influence, or how my mind was influenced because I read the scriptures, I studied them, and I happened to filter a lot of the information to narrow it down to principles. Now, we were discussing earlier, for example, you said, most people believe or think that science and religion are
two different things.
two different realms.
And you in Hack the Law of Attraction, the book, you blended them beautifully because you really covered, and you didn't take away one from the other. You mixed it in such a way that it was easy to follow too, and it wasn't like controversial. And that's what I think we have to worry a little
Exactly.
bit, right?
And that was my goal when writing my books. I wanted to bring information, data, accurate information, because the pain that I was experiencing is because I was given wrong information. I was given inaccurate information, or it was some truth that was mixed with inaccuracies or right out lies. So what happens is that because you believe these things and you apply them every day, but if you happen to notice that your life is not getting better or things are not working out, but you double down on that knowledge that you think is the truth, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you double down because you've been told that it is the truth. And I came to the realization that most people confuse facts or truth with what they think are people's opinions or what they think is truth. And there's a huge difference. There's ways to make sure that you know which ones are the facts. And, and going back to that question is like, where did it come from? And
Yeah,
I
I just like, there was a force, there was something, and I don't want to get into like, maybe too much, but let's give credit to where credit is due.
yes.
Something made you, helped you to bring that to right. And I think with writing, it's also it's a way to I will say it's expressing how you feel.
It's a release.
It's a release.
Yes.
I've spoke with people over the years too, especially going through bad like divorces.
Yes.
My thing for them would be write it out. Write everything down. Write down what you're feeling, what's going on, and look at it and you read it, and it really does make you feel better. You just see things in a different light.
Uh-huh.
But
Ellie, I think we talked about this on the very first podcast.
And
this
we
is
did.
what you did.
Yeah.
You wrote all your feelings, and you really didn't have any type of push to do it. You just kind of did it. So Julian, I want to actually go back and ask you a question about you reading the Bible when you were
Yeah.
9 or 10 years old.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that you went through a lot of pain here. Why did you read the Bible at 9 or 10 years old and not like play Pokemon or watch cartoons? Why was the Bible a staple for you at such a young age?
There's a lot of factors. So obviously I grew up in a Christian household.
Ultra Christian, right? Got to be ultra Christian, right?
Yes, I think it's I think you can, that's a good description of my experience. What happened is that there was a lot of chaos going on in my life at a very young age. I don't want to get into too much detail. It was very painful experiences that I feel, a little kid my age should not have gone through.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the things that it's true, some people will hide in video games. Of course, I play video games. Of course, I went outside and, play with a soccer ball or went and play basketball or, try to hang out with friends or whatever. But that I figure, something, I think it was God that was influencing my mind, because a lot of that is just a patch, because I will come back home, back to the pain, back to the mystery, back to noticing what was so wrong with my life and the life of my family. So luckily, it's like my mom, she was, and bless her heart for doing this. She took one of our rooms and she built a bookcase, and she just filled it up with all kinds of books. And I think, this was God or the universe, pushing me. It's like, go in here, spend some time, open these books, explore. And I follow that pattern. I follow that feeling. And something in me just wanted to keep reading these things. And of course, this is a very complex book. But as my goal was like, you know what, this is my goal. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to read it cover to cover, because I want to know what this is. Because my mom will talk to me about it. She will open it up and try to teach me certain things. So I think those are the influences that push me to be able to do that, and just, whatever was going on in my reality at that moment was really influencing me to accomplish that goal.
Ellie, you probably would agree with me here, though. Reading the Bible at such a really young age probably expanded your creative side tremendously.
Yes.
Right? Just off topic here, do you have a favorite Bible story?
Let's see.
There's so many. If you don't remember it, that's fine. But there's so many that probably had to be like blow your mind when you were a kid.
Yes, that's absolutely true. I mean,
the Bible had a lot
huge.
of stuff.
There's absolutely
Samson was mine.
So
Story of
much.
Samson was mine.
Yeah,
But,
I like that one too.
The story sounds excellent. Yeah. I think the one that stood out the most to me, it was the gospel. Matthew, Luke, and John, and Mark, and just the story of Jesus. And the reason being is because he used very simple illustrations to teach very complex lessons about life. So he was teaching principles on success. And like, to give you an example, Jesus said that with faith, nothing is impossible. And then he will say that if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can tell a mountain to move from here and be tossed into the sea. And, you think, man, that's unbelievable. And then he coupled that with the statement. He says, and this is in Matthew 7 through 11, you can quote me on it. He said, keep on asking, it will be given you. Keep on seeking, and you will find. Keep on knocking, and it will be open to you. Because everyone who asks will receive. Everyone who seeks will find. Everyone knocking It will be open to you. And he simply said that the way we think about God is like this. He said, it's like, who of you who's a parent, if his kid asks for bread or fish, will give them a stone or a serpent, right? So it's a simple illustration to teach you that you can approach God or the universe in prayer and say, you know what, this is what I want. And it's as simple for the universe or for God to give it to you as that piece of bread or that fish.
And not to change or to turn it totally subject, but so do you feel, which in the book it kind of states it a little bit, that
Yeah.
the universe and God work together, correct? It's like when you pray, you're praying to God, but the universe is working together. I mean,
Right.
how would you?
That's an excellent question. It's like,
Yeah,
what is the
because-
full integration of that
Yeah.
understanding? It's like, is God the universe?
Right.
Or is God separate from the universe? And I can't say I have a monopoly over this knowledge, on this understanding. This is
Dang it!
based.
Yeah, well, I want to
So,
hear.
I have
wanna
my
hear the whole
notebook.
thing.
I have my notebook out.
So
Am I
my
going to church Sunday? Or am I going to go to the?
my intention, everything I teach, everything I say, I always say from the spirit of, this is what I believe I know based on the data that I currently have myself, right? As opposed to saying this is how it is, because
Your life experiences, what you've experienced.
right.
This is your journey, and
Right.
this is what you've come across.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's my story
Your
time.
story, yeah.
Right?
And again,
So
I think
people can take, what I say and, filter it into what they think they know and apply in their lives. I encourage them to apply it. So that's how I approach that question. Repeat the question one more time because I lost myself.
what I asked.
No, no,
I went on
gotta-
a tangent here.
No,
and I
you-
completely.
your stuff is great. But I wanted to ask a question about your book. So your book is called Hack the Law of
Yeah, and
Attraction.
that's what I was going to jump
One
into.
of them, yes.
And so when Ellie
Oh,
told
yeah,
me
yeah.
about your book, I was like, oh, this has got to be a dating book. I want to know. I want all the free game on how to get all the ladies and stuff. But your book is not about that. You want to go ahead and give everybody kind of like a synopsis of what your book's about?
Well, it's not a relationship book because it's a book about about principles. I call them universal principles. So, regardless of who you are, this is what I found out. Regardless of who you are, what you believe, there are principles in life that if you apply them, will work, regardless. So, going back to Ellie's question, she says, like, what's the difference between God or the universe? So, a person who approaches the universe and thinks of this force, there's this universe, there's this massive creation, and there's power in this. And as long as they know that, and they have faith in that power, they will manifest. The other person that says, you know what, I believe in God, and that God will answer my prayers, and that whatever I ask for, just like it says in the Bible, He will provide, then that will work as well, because I found both to be true. Now, in my opinion, the difference between God or the universe is that God Himself created it's like a well-oiled machine. And let me put it to you like this. And I think the best way, or the best person who described it was Nikola Tesla.
I was going to ask you about him because you mentioned him a lot throughout the book.
Yeah, and I love his philosophy.
Yeah, and I was going to. That was one of my questions. I wanted to ask you who he is.
Right. So he's a renowned scientist. So his early integrations of science and technology essentially sprung all the technology that we are currently even using on this podcast, the computers, the internet, robotics. It's just thanks to his early integrations, there has been an explosion of technology ready that has been made available to us.
But he was from how many years ago?
Exactly. Early 1900s, he was quoted as saying, look, there's going to be a time.
So he was psychic. He had some kind of vision.
Well, this is what I was going to describe to you. He quoted God kind of like this. He said that in the universe, that there's a core, right? He first said, my brain is a receiver, but that in the universe, there's a core from which we can download or draw in power, inspiration, and knowledge. he said he wasn't fully integrated into it, but he knew it was real because he testified to experiences where he felt that in his brain he kept receiving this download
Wow. So
Where-
way before its time.
where he pictured all these creations and he will create them, and it's mind blowing, and that's essentially how I understand how the universe works and how God created that universe for us to have ready and available that tool for us to use. And that's not a contradiction from the Bible either, because Jesus said that you can command for things to happen. Just like he said, if you have faith, size of a mustard seed, you will tell this mountain, move
Right.
from here to there. So are we commanding God or are we commanding the universe? Right? There seems to be a contradiction. It isn't. It's just a different perspective. And God, in his love, in his infinite intelligence, and I like to use that word, infinite intelligence, and I got that from Napoleon Hill. He pretty much, in his writings, he described that. He says we all have this available knowledge that we can download from infinite intelligence, and we can use that to accomplish.
Intelligence that we don't realize we have. Is that what you're saying? Like you could be sitting here and all of a sudden you're thinking of all these things that are coming into your head. Like, well, how did that get there? How did I know that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, we've all had those experiences. I think I've told you some of mine. Yeah.
Yes, we have those discussions.
Yeah.
And guess what? That's one of the
So
common,
true.
that's
So
a
true.
universal principle.
Yeah.
It applies
We know
to
things that
anyone.
we shouldn't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to me during that pain, because I prayed for those answers. I receive this intention. Sit down, take all the data that I pretty much have given you through all your life. You have finally made an integration. You're ready for it. And when I sat down, I'm like, okay, I've never written anything substantial. And I sat down and it just poured. It flew through me, and I just typed away. And I wrote my first book, which is called Blueprint for Immortality: The Quantum Code for Life Secrets to Success.
Oh snap!
And this is a 300-page book. It's highly comprehensive because it was a lot.
Wow. You want to tell us a little bit about that one? Because I didn't really read that book.
Right. So
I wanted to. I will read it because this one was. I loved that. It was
Yes.
a great book.
So
Yeah.
this book I wrote, had Law of Attraction. My mentor Don Boyer, he told me, is first what I did is earlier you asked me how did you come to, get his attention? How'd you get his attention?
Yeah,
How'd you come into this documentary? Well, through serendipity, right? Certain circumstances.
My word.
Right. So I said, I was using the law of attraction, or I was asking God, for success, for guidance, for me to,
That's how I found Phil. But go ahead.
Exactly.
true.
See, it works. It doesn't matter who
I
you
know.
are.
I know.
It works.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to. Yeah, it totally works. Right, Phil? I was just telling Phil earlier.
Yeah.
That's how I ended up here.
100% agree.
Yeah.
And I
And
wanted
I'm
to.
serious. I'm making jokes, but we're serious.
Universal.
Yeah,
we
I wanted to
know.
ask both of y'all that question.
Yeah. I'm like,
Is it? Do you believe in fate and destiny, or are we really in control of what we do?
Well, based on what we have talked about so far,
yeah.
we have absolute control and 100% over our reality and our choices.
I think we have control to some degree.
What do
but
you
I
say, like
think
50-50.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I
80-20?
don't. I think that, like, are we in control? I think we are. Depending on how we go about to do things, maybe. Does that make sense? I don't know. I think we are, but then there's sometimes like shit gets thrown at us, and you're like, what the?
Well, going back to my story, because
Yeah, you just.
because I was creating this. This was my intention, right?
Yeah.
I was following universal instruction. So I asked Don Boyer, I'm like, listen, I wrote this book. I kind of told him the experience because I understood that he was definitely familiar with what we're talking about. I mean, he's an absolute expert, as you notice in the documentary.
Yes,
I'm sure you got that from it.
Yeah, definitely.
So he said, yeah, sure, I'll read it. I'll take a look. Because I was like, look, I'm trying to get proof of concept, right? Because I want to make sure that, I don't have too many filters in my book talking about things that are inaccurate. Because I already had the pain that I experienced for believing in inaccuracies. So I didn't want to be a person who was doing the same thing, right? And he came back to me after a week. He's like, I read it. He's like, listen, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to congratulate you. I have this library of 2,000 books, and yours is one of the best ones I ever read.
Yeah,
and I read 3 hours a day. So,
Beautiful. What a
so I'm
nice
like,
compliment. Yeah.
So it's not to pat myself in the back. I was just looking for that validation.
Hey, give it. You got it.
Hey,
Give it. Pat yourself.
Yeah.
Oh,
Good
no,
job.
totally. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thank God for that experience. So
It's a great book, and I love the way you mix the science. Like I say, the science and the religion,
right.
because it's usually either or. It's almost like a taboo to mix it together, because you get people like, oh, it's religion and science. You did it. You wrote it
Right.
beautifully and
Thank you.
understandable and
Thank you.
smooth.
Right.
It-
And that's exactly the
yeah,
observation he
smooth.
says. Like,
Yeah,
you
totally.
did a wonderful job. It's like one of the best things I've ever heard.
hey, Julian, when you say that you were, you were listening to inaccuracies, can you name one inaccuracy that you were listening to that you had to break away from?
Okay, so one of them that I had to realize is what I said earlier. Nobody has a monopoly over knowledge, wisdom, or understanding. So what happens is that in a lot of these, religions that we grow up under, right? It's like you take reality, right? We're born to parents in which we have no control over it, right? We don't have control over that choice. We were just born, and those are our parents. We came in with a blank slate or a blank mind, right? No integrated data, no knowledge, no critical thinking, no filter, right? We're babies.
Yeah, we had a choice.
No choice,
We just
right?
landed.
So think about it. So for the first 10 to 15 years, you're just taking in what they are. And what happens if they're the cause of the chaos around you or the pain, and because they don't know, right? You are the receiver. You become the receiver of that. So, and then if you want to expand on that point, if you think about it, not only your parents, but our parents went through the same process we did, right? They were born with a blank mind, and their parents and so forth. So it's a highly subjective experience of how we gather data or information at a very, very early age. So
it sounds like you. I don't want to say broke the code, but it seems like you broke out of that mold a little bit from how your parents were. 'Cause you said, am I right? Was there something that went on, or am I using my psych here?
So-
was there something that went on like that made you
right, you're right on point, because
totally progress
yeah,
into a different level?
yes,
Is that rightly saying it that?
Yes.
Is that saying it that way?
yes, that's exactly the
Yeah.
observation.
I was
And
gonna-
what happens is, this is a general statement. It does happen, and then the thought that they will teach you that this book or this set of rules is the absolute truth, right? So, and it's infallible, it's unquestionable. This happens a lot, especially in dogmatic religions. So when this is taught, right, to a little child, a little kid as he's growing up, because you have no choice but to accept that, right? It's like, yeah, of course, these are my parents, they love me, and you can't help it. But then down the line, you start to realize that there's something wrong, because the quality of your life, it's always determined by the quality of your philosophy about life.
So it sounds like you broke that chain, or what was going on in your life, through religion, through the Bible. You seems like you submerged yourself into another way of learning other than what your parents were teaching you. Correct? Or it helped you guide you into a different direction.
I had to filter a lot
Yeah.
of the inaccuracies. So that was one of them. The thought that everything that I was being taught was infallible, or you couldn't question it,
Gotcha.
right? So I had to come back, and it's like, yes, I read the Bible cover to cover, but a lot of the information, some of it, if you really dig deep, some of it is subjective interpretation, meaning, one person, 10 people will look at the same thing 8 of them will say, you know what, this is what I think. They will agree. The other 2 will say, I don't think so. I see something else. I'm reading something else.
Well,
I interpret this something
That's
else.
what everything, yeah.
And how do you know that that's the fact of life or the truth of life? There's thousands of religions with the same book. How does that happen? It's because the psychology of how we take in knowledge and data and information is highly subjective. Not so. My experience is I took what worked in my life experience. I said, you know what? I read this. I applied it. I got this result, and it was very positive. I applied this, but there's a shade. Something's wrong. And then you filter. So from that, I took what worked, right? And then I realized I lack knowledge. I lack integrity. What's going on? I'm praying to God or the universe. More information started coming through. I started studying the sciences of success, philosophy. I started studying quantum mechanics and scientific research, the psychology of the mind. Napoleon Hill's works, which he's considered the Jesus of entrepreneurs. Like millionaires swear by him. And I'll tell you a really interesting story, and I love saying the story. It's a long time ago. I used to serve tables, and I was working. It was like a high-end, very high-end. And this gentleman with his wife would walk in, and he always drive. It was a Bentley, a white Bentley, beautiful, right? So obviously, he was successful. So one day I'm serving him, and I asked him, I'm like, let me ask you a question. It's like, what do you attribute your success to? It's like, what happened in your life? How come you are where you are? And he told me, it's like, I'm going to give you the answer. It's like, read one book. I'm like, and I already knew what he was going to say because I was reading it.
Really? Wow. Cool.
What book was it?
Yeah. Tell us.
Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, I heard of that book. I don't think I read it. I must have missed that one. Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
So, Think and Grow Rich. Did you hear that, Phil?
I'm writing it down right now.
Think and
Okay.
Grow Rich by
Gonna
Napoleon Hill. You can download it for free as a PDF.
Oh,
Wow.
snap. Look at that. He's getting a free game.
Yo, look at that. Woohoo. Wow, that's so cool.
And he told me, and this was probably the most important key that he says. It's like I read it, but I didn't read it once. I read it perpetually. So once I'm done, I read it again.
Wow.
Once I'm done, I read it again, and I still
Repetitiveness, yeah.
read it because he understands that these are universal principles. They're what brought you to the party, right? Some people forget. Oh, it's like I'm failing now. It's like what's going on with my life? You forgot the principles. You gotta go back to them.
So, just going to change this up for a little bit because I know you. I want to bring up your ghostwriting, if you don't mind.
A little bit, yeah, sure,
Okay.
yeah,
You do ghostwriting as well.
yes.
For rappers?
Not yet.
Only spiritual influence.
Oh, dang it.
Wait, he talks to ghosts. No, he does ghostwriting, and what? I have some questions though.
First, what is that?
Yeah, that's what I want you to explain. What is a ghostwriter? Because a lot of people don't. You're right, Phil. A lot of people don't know what that is. And when I told them I was going to have Julian write my book, he's going to be my ghostwriter. My sister thought it was going to be about some because I had a lot of ghost stories.
What
She's
is-
like,
what
I
is
said,
he,
you
a
can write
medium?
about your ghost stories? I'm like, what?
Is he a medium?
Yeah, I'm like, no, it's not about ghosts. Please explain to the people that do not know what a ghostwriter
I'm
is.
a technical medium, if that's what you mean. So just like your podcast says, right, story time. So Ellie has a story, right? We had this conversation.
We all have a story.
You have this amazing story in life. A lot of people do that have, they're at the end of the learning curve and they're just a living success. And many of them, they want to sit down and write their story for people to benefit, right? These are the things that made me successful. They're thinking about these things. It's like if people just thought of like the way I think, they would be better off, right? I could coach them. I could teach them. And you know what? A book could be an excellent tool for that, right? For me to help them and bring them into my environment so I can help them. I can serve them, right? So, but what happens is like they really don't know the technical how to sit down.
We don't know how to
and
write.
the book. Exactly. So
I'm gonna be right. I'm gonna be blunt. I'm gonna be. I mean, yeah, we graduated. We don't know how to write, and we can talk all day long, and I said I can't write. I mean, I can't. I'm not gonna sit there and write a story. And
Exactly.
No, I'm not
That's
gonna.
the second thought that
This is
people
what a
will have.
ghostwriter is.
Exactly.
Yes.
They will have all these amazing ideas of how they can create, a knowledge platform to teach people their expertise. But then they're like, "Oh, I don't know how to do this." So they stop. They stop themselves, or they forget about the thought. But it keeps coming back. And it keeps coming back, and they know that it's something that's important. So that's where I come in. I sit down. I can filter and draw in all your knowledge, all your data bank from your story, and then I can narrow it down to principles, and I can take those stories, wrap them around those principles, write 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 chapters, however you want me to write, and get you a 200, 300-page book, fully published in 2 months, right?
Right.
So that's essentially what a ghostwriter is, but it will be published under your name. People would not know, oh, you know what, the book says, ghostwriter Julian Valderrama. No, this is your book.
Right. Right. And I know when I sat down with you and spoke to you about that, you were full of ideas. I mean, I was just like, I did that, and you were like, yeah, you did that, and then you did this, and I'm like, how did you know that? And you just like filled in the blanks.
Exactly.
You knew right where to go with the next line, and I'm like, oh, this guy's going to be easy to work with, because you just know, just knew like to know. So I'm really looking forward to getting that book,
Absolutely.
John.
Yeah.
That'll be a lot of fun. What else can we talk about? We talked about. We should probably talk about the manifestation. Can you give us some I mean, how do you do it? How do you manifest? What would you say? How do you start that? Like right now, somebody walks in and say, "Hey, I want to learn about manifestation." I mean, yeah, you could say go to the library or go Google manifestation, see what it means. How would you explain to people, like, how do you manifest? Where do you start?
He's going to say smoke weed, right? What you do?
I have a couple drinks. No,
I'm
but,
playing.
No, really, you're right. Like, how do you start? Oh, do you know how to manifest, Phil? That's manifest, Phil.
Well, I meditate, but by meditating, I stare into a wall. I know you might make fun of it, but that's just how I kind of get into the zone, as people call it, right?
What people?
What people?
I just
what do you mean, you people?
people in general.
What do you think we're out here having a seance or something?
No, really. I just stare at a wall, and then I just kind of get into the zone and just kind of think about what my thoughts are. I'm just now coming into this, like manifesting and projecting my wants to the universe. I guess you can say I've been coming into the reality of spiritualization.
Yeah.
That's recent for me. I've been a person that's been like, no, this is right, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. And then the same thing that Julian went through, I had to kind of fight off all of those inaccuracies, or I guess stigma, you can say. And that completely opened up my mind to try new things. And actually these things work. I feel better. I'm not as stressed. And so for me, when I start my manifestation, I have an altar. I have an altar, and I just kind of talk to my ancestors. I stare at my wall and just kind of have a conversation. And that's just kind of how I meditate and chill and put up my projections for the week or the month or the year.
And
that's excellent.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing. People have different modalities, different techniques, with different interpretations of how this can be done. And the reality is that it's the universe is a huge target, so it's hard to miss. And this is the reason being. We are always manifesting. And that's the reality of it. And many people might argue on that point, but the science doesn't lie. Quantum mechanics has teaching us that our atomic structure vibrates millions and millions of times per second. It happens so fast that our mind cannot comprehend or even attempt to calculate, how many times we vibrate. Now, what does that mean that we vibrate? It means that our atomic structure, it's first and foremost waves of energy, and these waves of energy are spreading thin through all time and space. Nikola Tesla kind of said something in reference to this. He said many things, but I think the one that stands out the most to me is that he said that every human being, every individual, you and me, we are an engine, that we are gear into the universe, and that our influence extends into infinite distance. Now that sounds mind blowing, but he said it, and that statement carries heavy authority because he manifested a lot of creations using the same techniques. So when you vibrate something into the universe, where there's a positive thought or a negative
I was
thought,
going to ask you that.
yeah, it's the same thing. The universe is hearing and exactly what you put in out, and by via law of attraction, right, magnetic rhythm. And by the way, the law of attraction is the same as the law of friction, which I go into further detail in the book as to what that means, which is a huge missing point in a lot of the law of attraction groups and gurus. And what happens is that the universe calculates in an instant before you can think about it what you're supposed to be receiving, and then you are manifesting reality in your life without thinking about it. So whether you know it or not, you are always manifesting. So the real question is, how do you intentionally manifest what you want?
Correct. I was going to, kind of what I was going to say, because you always, that word is thrown around like, like we're going to go have dinner.
Yeah.
I mean, manifestation, manifest, I must hear it like 15 times a day through somebody.
Right.
Somebody's.
Do you
But is there a way, I mean, okay, we manifest, but can you manifest the wrong thing, the wrong vibe? Can you be manifesting negativity instead of the positivity? And how would you shut that down? How would you do that in your thought? Like when someone starts having these negative thoughts and they're like manifesting negativity.
Yeah, I mean,
And people do it all the time. And I always say, just
you gotta change.
shut that down.
gotta
But how would you like turn that around? Say a prayer. Do you believe prayer helps that?
Yes.
Do you think prayer would pull you out of that a little bit?
Yes,
Maybe a little?
that's definitely one principle you can use to turn that around. So to answer your question is like, do people manifest negativity? Look at the world, right? Just take a second, go through the news. Look what's being manifested, right? So what is the cause, right? Essentially, it comes down to people's thinking, people's beliefs. And then the law of attraction, what it does is that it will clump like-minded vibrations. So you will always see it. You will always see the pattern. Negative people will always attract. There's the saying that birds of the same feather
Flock together. And there's
flock
something in the book that
together.
you wrote about
Right.
that. About
Right.
I
So
wondered-
the Bible says that if you hang out with the wrong crowd, right, you're gonna fare badly. Right. I mean, our parents used to tell us, listen, don't hang around those kids. And we thought we knew better, and we pay the price because that energy sticks. You become like them. So that's what the law of attraction will do first. It takes your environment and calculates the environment that you're in, and then it will encase you in that environment. So if it's really negative, you have to put a lot of energy and spiritual force towards the other direction, because the universe serves as a mirror reality of exactly what you're vibrating 24/7, what your thoughts are, what your words are, your actions are a vibration. Ultimately, the science has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that, the thoughts that we think about or the words that we speak will form neural pathways in our brain that will connect. These neural pathways will create chemicals equivalent to the coded energy of the original thought, whether it's positive or negative. And through the brain, I believe is the hypothalamus, it says that it will flood your entire system with this energy, and your cells will feed
Well, they say what we think we become.
That's why exactly
I'm
what you
rich.
think about.
Well, yeah, that's why they say.
Yes.
No, they say, right? Think in
Yes.
positive that you have it. They say when you're manifesting whatever you want, think it like you have it already. Don't like in other words, like you already have it.
Like
Act
you already
like you have it.
That's the best one.
And when I read in your book about hanging out with people that you become who you it's kind of said that way. You kind of become who you hang out with.
Osmosis. Yeah.
And I couldn't agree with that anymore. And I always try to say to even my kids or even to anybody, it's like try to hang out with equal or a little above, or especially when they were dating. No, equal or a little above. This way you level out and you only grow. You grow. And I think a lot of people will try to do that. They'll try to hang around with people that are more influential or have more. So subconsciously, that's what they're doing. You know, they're, or let me hang out with that person because they have this, and maybe I will get that. But it does bring up their, I think it brings up their energy. It does. And
Oh,
it,
yes.
And it,
It's
mentor.
Not, it's not think.
Yeah,
It,
and-
it happens
Yeah.
by law.
And
It's
a
like the law of gravity.
And that's what you mean by mentor. In your book, when you mentioned a mentor,
Yes.
you're meaning not just go hire a mentor, you're meaning people of, I don't want to use the word better, but people that maybe have more, people that you look up to. That's what you're mean in your book when you mentioned mentor several times. Like,
But also a mentorship is
Yeah.
invaluable because what happens when you get a mentor, somebody who's so ahead of the curve, their energy will affect you at a quantum level. And that's the real benefit of having a mentor because just the contact right here, you and I, we're exchanging particles of the energy we have accumulated through life, right? I feel warm. I feel good. I feel great.
I feel fuzzy.
How come? Yeah.
I feel a little fuzzy myself.
Yeah, and then go hang out
Wait, we're
around
so-
somebody who's negative. You start having headaches,
I've had that.
arguments.
Have you ever hung around a negative person?
God.
I've had that happen to me about when I first moved here from Storytime.
Yeah.
When I first moved here from New York, and I would say almost about a year ago now I was here, I met some people that I thought were super nice. We all got along because I was new, right? So now you're mixing and meeting people. Everybody's fun. All of a sudden, there was just one person that I felt
Bring the group
frozen.
down.
Yep. And it took a while. It took a while to realize we got to get rid of her.
Wait. You're from New York, so when you say you got to get rid of her, you don't mean that way.
Well, no, it means you fit them for cement shoes.
Oh
and
no,
eventually,
she's admitting it. Delete this. Delete.
and then eventually, no. I mean, we got to get rid of these motherfuckers. No, but yeah, sorry. We got to get rid of them.
But
No.
hold on.
But no,
Maybe
yeah.
it's that serious. It's like, I mean, not to the extreme that
Well,
he said.
no, she
but-
was bad. This girl
but-
was bad. She was stealing from everybody, and we all thought she was the greatest thing.
Exactly.
And we're all, she's really, she's stealing from us. She plotted this, she plotted that, and it broke up the whole relationship with all of us. And it was just like nobody saw this bad person until I pointed this out. I'm like, she wouldn't have done this, she wouldn't have done, and my energy was like, I felt mean. I felt
You know
not,
what I call those people, Ellie? I'm going to say that I created this term, but I probably didn't. I probably heard it somewhere, and maybe Julian, you probably heard it. I call those people emotional leeches.
I call them emotional vampires.
Yeah, emotional
They're
leeches.
on, yeah, same thing, and they're on you. They see that you're something, and they're like, and they're so into your face, they're so into your shit that you're like, I can't take it no more. I mean, you got to get rid of these. You got to get rid of them, and it's like, you don't realize until you start feeling sick.
Yep.
Like something's not right. I don't feel right. You just
Exactly.
don't. And when you start feeling like that, I've learned now because I must have been a little isolated, but
Well, and
I
there's-
learned now to
and there's-
get rid of that.
There's a scientific explanation. I'm sure you caught it on my book. And this is the thing that the law of attraction does. Let's say, like you say, it's like you're feeling good, you're going about your day, you're feeling great. Let's say from 1 to 10, 10 feeling amazing, you're a 9.
You'd get that
Right.
phone call from that person. You'd be
Right,
like,
and then you go hang out with that person, just a shake, how you doing? Immediately, the law of attraction, right? It's hypnotic rhythm because the law of attraction is also the law of friction. So what happens is that this principle of the universe wants to hypnotize the energy that is defined in a time and space. So assuming that you're next to this person, right? Via quantum mechanics, the universe calculates immediately, okay, this person's pretty high over here, but this person is a low 4 or a low 3, right? We got to balance this out real quick. So guess what? The universe will take your energy and give it to them. So they're feeling amazing in
Yeah.
front of you. It's like they're
Yes.
so happy, and all of a sudden you're like, why do I feel like crap? What's going on?
and that's what it was doing.
And
This
it's because the universe says, it's
Yes.
like, no, I don't want things to be uneven. This has to be balanced out.
emotional
So-
vampire or leeches. Yes.
Exactly. So it's something we have to be aware of. And this is something that explains a lot of the chaos in the world because, the universe says that everything has to be in harmony or be as close as possible in vibration or in frequency on thought form or consciousness. So when people polarize their thinking, it says, you know what? This is so polarized, I can't even this out. And one energy is taking the time and the space, and the other one, so it creates a chasm. It creates this huge abyss between both polarized thinkings or thought patterns, and it creates disharmony or resistance or friction. That's why I say it's like, yeah, when you learn about the law of attraction, great. You said, but understand it's also the law of friction. So it might create chaos in your world if you come around somebody who's in disharmony with who you are.
And I think it happens well, that's what happens. Wait, we don't want to get into this part, but that's what happens in relationships as well.
Yeah.
Right? When you're
Exactly.
in a marriage or somebody.
And that's why I said my book is not really about relationships,
No.
but using the principles, you can
It's-
apply them towards your
exactly.
relationships.
Yeah. And that's why when we're just not getting along, or we just got this, someone's frequency.
Right.
Wait.
It could
wait,
be.
What, someone's
You might
frequency
have
just.
to. You might have to check your words. It's like, okay, first of all, am I we always creating. Like I said, you're always manifesting whatever experiences you have. So it could be your thoughts, your words. It could be a subconscious pattern that you inherited from your parents. And it's like, how do you get rid of that? Right? There's techniques and there's things that you can do to do that. And this is something that the Bible teaches. It says that God brings punishment up and brings the sin of the fathers upon the sons and the grandsons upon 7 generations. And that was always interpreted as like, man, God is so mean. Why would he, punish, the generations for this
Yeah,
person?
we didn't do no shit. Why is he doing that to us?
That's
Man,
the
God.
wrong.
I don't know, man.
Well,
I
now
never-
we have the answer. We have an integrated answer.
Yeah.
Based on the scientific research, quantum mechanics, based on that principle, the energy trickles down because your thoughts become things. They affect your body. It's a psychosomatic relationship. Your thoughts are not just nothing. They literally are vibrations affecting, first of all, your entire body. Your body is composed of mostly cells that are, DNA. And the DNA gets rewritten over and over again with these codes, right? So, for example, somebody who unfortunately might have been born in a third world country where there's mass chaos and poverty, they might be thinking, you know what, I'm going to use the law of attraction to become rich and wealthy. The thought of disharmony is so beyond being able to create because their environment is so hypnotized based on that reality that it's going to take a lot of work. It's like, yeah, they can change it because we've seen it. We've seen the stories of rags to riches. It happens. But that takes an enormous amount of time, energy, effort, and resources and willpower.
Wow. I've got one last question for you, Julian. And
Yes.
I think you've done a tremendous job
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
summarizing up your book and your experience and your life story. But let's say somebody gets your book, they read it cover to cover.
Yep.
What do you suggest their first step is after reading the book?
Read it again.
Really?
Read it a second time. After you're done, read it a third time. It's like I said, that gentleman, he told me, it's like
Yeah.
people scan information, and that's one of the detriments right now, for example, of social media and like things like TikTok is like people's attention span is like so short. It's like, oh, I'm not entertained, so they're scrolling through, finding the next.
Nothing's absorbed.
Right. So
We're not
it's-
absorbing it. We're
it's-
just going.
Right.
Going.
So this is why a book is so important, and this is why I will say that there are forces in this world that are attempting to deviate people from reading physical hard books, because you're holding the vibration
Right.
of words that are thoughts that will affect your physiology. It has a psychosomatic response, and if you're holding it, right, it's affecting your entire energy. So, for example, if you buy, somebody who is ultra successful and they happen to have written a book themselves, right? That is highly beneficial because they took their entire energy and put it on this encased physical form, and now you're able to hold on to that energy and be affected by it, especially if you open it. Now you are developing neural pathways and thinking patterns of individuals who have had tremendous success. Guess what? There's tremendous benefit on that. And social media is not going to help with that.
No, and I'd much rather hold a book in my hand
Yes.
than to look even like to go on my phone or.
Yep.
I have one of my friends. I was talking to her today, and we were talking about books because of all naturally this book. I said you got to read the law. Hack the Law of Attraction. It's a great book.
Yeah.
And she's like, I spoke to 2 friends today and told them about it. One's definitely she's all over that.
So we'll put
But
we'll put the links in the comments. But how do we purchase your book, Julian?
They're on Amazon.
Amazon? Okay,
You can,
cool.
They can just put my name, Julian Valderrama, or the title of my book, Hack the Law of Attraction, the Quantum Code to the Mastermind System. It's also connected to my other two books because I was trying to tell you guys earlier, with my influence with Don Boyer, he's served as a mentor, and he told me, he's like, your books are outstanding, but due to, the nature of the world, technology, and so people's attention span need to be guided. So I encourage you to write a simpler book to catch their attention so that you can lead them into your more comprehensive books, because these books are deep. They're very deep and comprehensive, but they will benefit. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote this book, to introduce them to my other two volumes.
Smart.
Yeah, very cool.
Ellie,
Yeah.
do you have any? You have a last question for
I
Julian?
don't. I mean, I think it was great. I'm glad we got him on here. I love the book.
Man, this is a tremendous conversation.
Yeah,
Really,
it was really
I've
good.
been enlightened.
Thank you.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. I was glad he was
Appreciate
able to come on
Yes.
our show. I want to thank
I've been
Julian
blessed.
for coming on here today.
Thank you for having me.
And as I always say,
Yeah.
everybody has a story. What's yours?
See you guys later.
Thank you.